Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Awaken to Your Soul Path. I am your host, Barbara, and today I'm joined by the wonderful Shirley Joy Joffe, and we are going to be talking about fierce empathy, and then specifically how to be a maverick leader from the heart. And these are already a couple of words that make me very enthusiastic. So I'm very happy that you're here, Shirley, and
Thank
let's dive in.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Right? Because we spoken before and we already had fun before we started recording, so that's
Yes.
always a good
Yeah, we
thing.
did.
And well, most people know what empathy is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, there are misconceptions about it. Some people think that empathy is only for empaths, but that's not true. Everybody has empathy to a certain degree.
Mhm.
Empaths
Mhm.
have it a bit further developed, I think.
Yes,
But
yeah,
also not always, because it depends sort of on your personal development, right?
very much so. And when we're talking about highly sensitive people, particularly, or people with neurodivergence or anything like that, empathy is a big topic because it's a huge scale.
Yes.
And so for example, if you are on the border of ASD, the autism scale, sometimes actually empathy is a very, very difficult thing for you.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's something that when I was looking at this and when I put together Fierce Empathy, and I noticed that a lot of visionary leaders are either neurodivergent or they have specific profiles, human design
Mhm.
profiles, that give them that drive, that give them that like different viewpoint of life, different, they look at things completely differently. You and
Yes.
I might look at a cup and see a cup, and they look and see, I don't know, like a vase with shooting stars coming out of it. And they see things differently,
Hmm.
sometimes not even in the realms of reality, like
Hmm.
literally out of what's in existence. But what
Yes.
can be missing is the empathy. And when you're leading in whatever case it is, whether it be business, whether it be inventions, whether it be your life, yourself, your family. Um, One thing is to drive, as it were, but the other thing is to have the people driving side by side you. And
Hmm.
that's where fierce empathy came into play, because it's really being very, very strong and focused on having your people with you. You are
Hmm.
not alone. And then, things happen and things really, really get exciting.
Yeah.
So within Fierce Empathy is actually my book. It's coming out at the end of April. And yes, I'm very, very excited. And when I started to put it together, it was all the leadership lessons that I have gathered over like 25, 30 years, because I've worked with people in business, clients obviously in families, all sorts of things. And there were some real key things that made such a difference to them.
Hmm.
And that's where this came into play. And the whole premise of fierce empathy is actually leading from yourself first.
Hmm.
And this is something that's really, really important to me, the authenticity part.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people think that authenticity is just being who you are like now. And I approach it slightly differently. It's being who you were designed to be and who you have the
Yes.
potential to be.
That's exactly how I describe it as well. So
Yeah.
we are similar in that sense because authenticity is one of the pillars of my business, one of the
Mm,
core values of my business. And
yes.
like you, I
Yes.
also work with human design and the Gene Keys, and it's for me indeed being who you were designed to be and who you've probably lost track of along the way.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
what most people are in this moment is not their true self or their authentic self, but the
Yes.
version of
Exactly.
themselves that they've created based on other people's expectations or societal
Mm,
expectations or traumas that
yeah.
happened in their life.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's, a lot of that goes in with this. And there is a kind of a balance. It's very interesting because I've been sort of I do loads of self-development work. I'm constantly
Yeah, me
digging
too.
and apart.
It never stops, right?
It never stops.
No.
And actually recently, I've been coming out of the closet a little bit in terms of um, the nice person, the people
Mm-hmm.
pleaser, and
Mm-hmm.
really shedding that and finding my edge. And within the design, my design, um, I was looking and I've got lots and lots of real strong shock gates. Things in the planets, the 51, there's different gates, like the 44, that are quite strong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked at that initially, and that was the first layer, and I was like, okay, so this nice girl image that I have, this niceness, it must be conditioned. I thought it must be a conditioned thing. I was brought up in a household where you didn't speak very much, and it was, English, very polite. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be nice. You don't
Yeah.
speak to elders, this sort of thing. So I was brought up with that.
European because I grew up like that as well, but I am originally
Yes,
from the Netherlands, and
yes, exactly.
I recognize what you're saying. I call myself a recovering people pleaser.
Yeah, that's what I say as well.
Right?
And I was looking at this because I was like, why can I not shift this stuff? Why am
Mm-hmm.
I still nice,
Mm-hmm.
And I looked deeper. I looked deeper into the design. And actually, yes, there is part of that where there is the edge, the spiritual warrior edge, all of the, bringing in revolutionary ideas, that kind of stuff. But then on the other side of it, my design is around acceptance, hope, and possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got potentially, not completely, potentially conflicting energies going on. So when I saw that, I was like, I started to think back on my life. And I thought to myself, yeah, you're quite easygoing.
Mm-hmm.
When things don't really matter, you don't make a fuss.
Yeah, I'm
You
the same.
like people to get on, you want there to be peace and harmony.
Yes.
But but when there is something that really for you is an
Goes against.
injustice,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's when those strong things come out, and I'm not afraid to speak
Yeah.
out about it.
Yeah. I quickly checked because I recognize everything you're saying. It's just like you're talking
Yeah.
about me. So as sister from another mister. But I indeed also have the 44 and the 51.
Yeah, yes. And if you look at your tones and those, the deeper parts of the variables, these for anyone who's listening who doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about, on a human design chart, there are some arrows and they give you ideas about like what environments you're best suited for, what themes, those sort of things. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, but yeah. So mine, and actually, I was looking at me and my husband's chart side by side, and
Mhm.
what was so interesting is I have one side of it because there's the distraction as well, the transference. I have one side, and he has the other side as his main one. So we
Ah,
literally
beautiful
are
balance.
mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
no, but
was
that
so.
was very balancing.
Yeah, so interesting. But on that theme, people who are looking constantly to think that it is trauma, it is conditioning.
Mhm.
There's a fine line. There's a fine line, I find.
Yeah,
Um,
it is also directly tied into which, in the human design, there are gates. And the gates in human design are the keys in the gene keys, for those people who do not know the difference
yeah.
between the two. And it is really also very much dependent on the ones that are active. I, for instance, also have the 43, which is the rebel, the one that goes
Yes.
against the grain. So that is
Yeah.
also something that triggers as
I
when
believe
something,
yes, I've got that one too.
yeah.
But I've also got 19 and 11, which are the real sensitive shaman mystic ones. I was actually looking at my chart for the other day again because I don't remember it. I sort of scan it every
Well, but
and
there are so many, right? So you don't
so
know all
many.
of them. And I have to say, I've been doing gene keys much more than human design lately. So the ones that come up in your gene keys profile, I'm much more
Yes,
intimately familiar with than all of
exactly.
the ones that are active in
All
the
of them,
human
yeah.
design.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but I was looking at the intuitive aspects because
Hmm.
uh, I'm a psychic and a mystic.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I wonder if this is reflected. And yes, pretty
Yeah.
much all of the intuitive mystical gates, I have them not only active but in defined centers as well. So they
Hmm.
are like permanently on.
Yeah.
So yeah, but when I was looking at all of this, it was just quite interesting that the labels and the things that we assign ourselves can sometimes really pigeonhole us. And then when we're
Yes.
thinking that, yeah, that this must be trauma, this because it doesn't feel like me, but there is an
Yeah,
aspect of
but you say we assign ourselves. I don't think it is actually us assigning it to ourselves. It's usually people that assign it to us. And when you start working with yourself and you end up at a psychologist or a psychiatrist or at the doctor's office or whatever, these are often labels that other people put on you. And because you think they know what they're talking about, we believe
yes.
it.
Mm. Well, what's so interesting is when I started a book around about leadership, I originally came from a corporate background.
Mhm.
So leadership is a very traditional, straight, you're doing psychometric testing to find out, are you this color or this color? Are you this number of
Yes.
letters? Or, all of this, very, very pigeonholed.
Yeah.
And like you say, this label appears and you actually start acting out as the label,
Hmm.
even if it wasn't you. You're like, oh, okay. And you
Yeah.
start being that label. So part of the whole premise in here is actually unpicking what is really you,
Hmm.
going through where is there is trauma, where there isn't trauma. But there are a lot of concepts in there that I've been using over many, many years through healing and through leadership, just to help people free themselves and
Hmm.
then really align with, and I want to say purpose because I'm calling it purpose and values, but not in the buzzword sense.
No. No, it's really the thing that you came here to do. That type
Yeah,
of purpose. And it's not the purpose
yeah,
that most people are talking about because
yeah.
the purpose that most people are talking about comes from the head. And the purpose we are talking
Yes.
about comes from your design.
It comes from the design, from the heart, from the
Wow.
spirit.
Yeah.
This is what you are here for. And I mean, for me, it's and this is the thing. People, if you look over your lifetime, this is when I say to clients, look over your lifetime, what is the common denominator in every job you've had, every relationship, this common denominator of how you behave, that's your purpose.
Yeah.
So for me, it was always teaching, helping, healing. Those three things.
For me, it's also teaching and helping, but also disrupting.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
also
Well,
a
I do it sneak.
disruptor.
I'm very sneaky. My design shows it actually. I don't like to do this very, very openly. I
Hmm.
kind of like go in and amongst, like a worm in a tech system.
Yeah,
Let's be able
exactly.
to go in and I just, yeah, yeah. But disrupting, yes, I've got disrupting as well.
And
But
that's
I've
what I
had to,
like about these systems, right? Because there are lots of systems that help people get to know themselves really well. But a lot of them are still based on testing. So MBTI, for instance, is a favorite one.
yes,
And
yeah,
so for myself is that every time I fill in the test, something else comes out.
yes,
I've been an
yes,
INFG and I've been an ENFG and I've also been an
yeah,
INTP and an
yeah,
ENTP. And so I thought, how can this be, right? How can every time I fill it out, something else comes out of it? And I discovered that it's really dependent on what phase of my life I am in and the emotions and the energies that are active
okay,
in that.
yeah.
And then I thought, well, then it's not something that I can depend on. Well, these two
Hmm.
systems, they are based on a lot of other systems, and they incorporate a lot
Yeah.
of other systems, but the
Mm.
design is generated based on your time of birth and your date of birth and your location of birth. So it's always the
Mm.
same because where you
Yes.
were born and how late you were born and what day you were born does not change. So that
Yes.
gives me this solid foundation to base myself
Mm.
on. And then when you start learning about yourself, you
Mm.
start discovering things about yourself. And for me, it was like, oh, this is why, or that is why. Oh, yeah, it makes total sense. So, this learning about myself through these two systems is the one and only thing that really gave me all the answers that I've ever been looking for my entire
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And what I love about it is it's not set in stone,
No.
that it flexes. Whereas the MBTI, like you say, it's just that's it. That's it. And also all the descriptions are this is your description. So there's no creativity. There's no growth. There's no development in that. And
Hmm.
as we grow, we change. The
Yeah.
design stays the same, but the expression of the design changes
Yeah.
depending on who we're around, our phase of life, what we're doing. And I find that very, very useful for
It
people.
is. And that's also why I love the addition of the gene keys. So for me, they are yin and yang, they
Yes,
complement
they
each
are.
other.
Yeah,
So when you look at the human design, in human design, a gate is a gate. And then you can
yes,
have a line number attached to the gate, but that's
yeah,
about it. But if you look at the gene keys, then you see that what
yeah,
a gate is now a key, it has three
yeah.
levels. It has the
Three
shadow
levels. Yeah,
side, and when you're
yeah,
not being yourself, when you're not being in
yeah,
your true energy, and how that could manifest in your
yeah,
life. And of course, that there's shadows that combine with each other. So that makes
yeah.
that manifest slightly different for people. But you start to
Mm,
recognize your shadow patterns and you start recognizing when they're showing up. And then you also
mm,
know what your gift is and what the
yeah,
frequency looks like when you're being in your highest
yeah.
energy, connected to
Fullest,
your
highest.
higher
Yeah.
self. And
Mm,
that is the sliding scale in which you can measure where you are at. And it doesn't mean that when you've become clear on your shadows that you will never end up in that, because especially the
no.
ones that are in the activation sequence, those are the four main keys
Mm,
or gates that are active in your profile, and the shadows play a part in 70% of everything that you're doing.
yeah.
And every
Yeah,
time
yeah,
you up level as a human, meaning every time you peel back a layer of the onion that is
yeah.
you and you grow, these
Yeah.
shadows are triggered again.
Yes, yes, exactly. And they just come about in a different way, different challenge, new challenge, higher
Yes.
level of challenge. And that is what makes a leader, is as you are growing through that and you're facing the challenges, that's what takes you through. And eventually, and I speak on this, it's a very progressive book. I start off with talking about, how you actually touch in with yourself. So we've got the values, the emotion, how to manage your emotions, the 12 levels, the hierarchy, how to manage that through lots of techniques and tools in there, and concepts that are really, really valuable for people who are discovering a bit more about how to then become visionary leaders.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite parts of that is actually when you're leading in chaos. That's the key. So all of the foundationary work that I put in there is leading people to getting people to be super strong in their foundation. So when the proverbial hits the fan,
Yeah.
you're like the lighthouse in the storm.
Yes.
Nothing shifts you. And that I think that those two chapters are actually my favorite chapters. The last one, which is all around also spirituality and how that comes into to knowing yourself as a leader. But I must say that my favorite chapters are leading in a storm, because that's what I'm very gifted in, and I
Hmm.
always was gifted in. So I really have that experience and working with people in that, helping them be strong and be unshakable
Hmm.
when they don't know what's going on and nobody knows what's going on.
Hmm.
And you
Yes.
have a family, you have a team, you have a business. You cannot be that person that's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you can't do that.
Yeah.
You might do that in the bathroom privately, but we won't talk about that.
But I think
But
that is also the one of the benefits, and there are many benefits, but one of the biggest benefits of getting to know yourself this well, this intimately.
yeah,
It's not about preventing storms to happen, but it's about
no,
recognizing the storms a lot quicker. So
yeah,
something happens, and then you think, "Oh God, this one is triggered again," and that you
mm,
then can step out of it. That you can sort of
yeah,
go into the observer
yeah.
role, and you can observe what is happening instead of being swept away in the storm.
Yes, exactly. And like you say, you learn to see it quicker and you learn to manage it better. It doesn't mean it's not happening. And also, it doesn't mean it's not difficult. It doesn't mean that you're not going to, one of the pieces I talk, because I talk about personal stuff and business stuff in here, because it's all part of life, obviously.
Mhm,
Um, and I talk about teenagers, and I'll share something quite personal. It's in the book. When we moved to Australia here, my daughter was around 15, and she literally was diagnosed with autism just as we arrived here. So very, very late. And
mhm,
the poor girl had had issues all of her life, which were not picked up, not noticed, because often with females, they mask, they can mirror and mimic very well. So you don't notice the signs as much.
mhm,
And she was diagnosed and she was having a really rough time. And at one point, she ran away. So she's 15 and she's
mhm.
run away and she was away for 6 weeks.
Wow, that must have been tough.
And so we have two other children here. We were just moving house as well. So she ran away while we were moving house.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, and I can honestly say that was such a test, not
Mm,
just, and I can't say that I managed it beautifully. It was devastating.
yeah.
And because I know myself so well, I knew what I was going through. And I
Mhm,
knew what I needed to go to fulfill that process.
yes.
So typically my body will go into a shock state, it will start shaking, and it will be in a shutdown for however long the thing lasts for.
Mhm,
And I become very, very detached from emotions. It becomes very pragmatic because it's the
mhm.
only way that I can do that until I have space to then take myself through the process that I take people in through the book,
Yeah.
which is the emotional levels. And I took myself through that process many times in that period of
Yeah.
time, many, many
Yeah.
times.
I recognize that. That was also my survival mechanism for a long time.
Yeah,
And then I discovered that I have the first gate active multiple times in my design, and the shadow of that one is numbness, and
yes,
or entropy, which is numbness, and that's when you go
yeah,
numb.
yeah, yeah. And it took a lot but what it did also do for me is it uncovered a very, very, very deep old pattern of disconnection. So I
Hmm.
would escape my body, I would just,
Hmm.
and I would do it through meditation, thinking, oh, this is so I'm so good. What a
Hmm.
virtuous person am I? I'm meditating all the time. No, it was an escape. It
Yeah,
was actually an escape mechanism.
can be.
And I
Yeah.
had, yeah, so I had to say, okay, so this is what's happening. This is why it keeps happening and my body's
Hmm.
not healing.
Hmm.
Now, since then, there have been other things that have happened, chaos states, stuff. And that state, that body shock state, is much shorter, much less intense. And I don't, oh, are we frozen? There we go.
No, no.
Back. Sorry.
I was
Um,
attentively listening.
sorry, no, I thought we'd frozen for a second. And my mind was actually functional. And it wasn't dispassionate or unemotional, but it was functioning properly, let's
Hmm.
say, because I've been through these processes so many times. And that's the difference. It's getting you to your point where you have done the foundation so often that when it's really necessary, it's a walk in the park. Your body knows how to do it, your spirit knows how to do it, and your mind knows how to do it. But it's not to say that things don't come up and things aren't hard. They life happens. You're not gonna, something happens. I don't sit there now and go, oh, la, 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 I'm fine and I will deal with that. And
Oh,
no.
you become better and better at navigating it. Every time something happens, you become a little bit better at navigating it, and that is also a process I think that never stops. It's
Mm,
it's not that you learn about yourself and you never have issues again, or that things will
yeah,
never ever happen, or when you shed light on your shadow, that your shadow will never appear again, or that
exactly.
when you work on yourself, you will never have stress anymore, or when you deal with your traumas, they don't come up anymore. That's not what it
No,
is about. It's really about learning to navigate when they come up, and
exactly.
having strategies in place that you know work for yourself, because you have gotten to know yourself well enough to know what to do for yourself or what to give yourself
Yeah.
in
Yes.
certain situations.
Exactly. Another part of it, that another chapter within the book that I also feel is so important, is the boundaries chapter. Because
Hmm.
but I talk about it from all three perspectives. So from physical, emotional, and energetic,
Hmm.
because all three are important. And one thing, I'll tell you what, it was a revelation, because as I was researching to write, uh, I was finding more stuff. So it wasn't just all the things I'd come across. I was like, oh, well, this is very useful, and I would practice it. And I was like, yes, it's fabulous. And there's one concept that I came across that was just unbelievable for anybody who overcommits. So if there's anybody who says yes a lot,
Hmm.
this technique is gold. And it literally is understanding that whenever you say yes to whatever, you are making an energetic contract and you are linking yourself. So when I do energy clearings and I'm clearing out cords and energy fields and hooks and bungees and all these sort of things, it's from oftentimes it's because people have just committed to something they didn't realize they were saying yes to. Right down to, and when I speak to my clients, they're like, oh, okay, I get that. I understand that. I said, yes, but wait a minute. When your husband or your partner or somebody, whatever, says to you, would you mind picking me up some milk?
Yeah, you think it's innocent enough, and you say, "Sure, I
Oh,
go there anyway, or I pass by the store anyway."
wait. That is an energetic contract that
Yes.
you have just made. You have placed an extra stressor or pressure or demand on your energy. And
Yeah,
if
and I
you
think
do
that
that
this is
often,
something that
yeah,
we, as empaths and highly sensitive people, deal with a lot, because
a
we're
lot.
people pleasers. And
Yes, exactly.
someone who is a people pleaser wants to please people, so their default setting is saying yes.
Yes, yeah. And I actually taught my husband this because he's lovely. He just wants to please me in any way. And I said to him, I want you to think before you say yes. Think about, do you have capacity, energetic and
Yes.
physical?
Check in with yourself.
Check in with yourself. Is this something that you're doing because you want for me to be happy? Or is this something that you are doing that you are like not just okay, but actually aligned with?
Hmm.
So, could you clean the kitchen for me, lovely? No, I cannot do that right now. I have and you don't even need to say what you've got. Just say, no, I can't do that right now. It's enough.
Hmm.
And if you're thinking of saying yes, what do you mean?
Hmm.
Get the person to be specific about it. Well, I'd like you to do the dishwasher and I'd like you to clean the tops and I'd like you to do. I might turn around and say, you know what, I really want you to deep clean all the cupboards and all of the handles. You know, there's different things. So
Yes.
getting clarity is another really, really important thing when
Yes.
you are setting up your boundaries. You need to
Yeah, but
have
that
clarity.
also prevents disappointment, because that's what I also see a lot with my clients. We get disappointed because of our expectations. So when you ask him to clean the kitchen and he just
Yeah,
takes a rag and some cleaning stuff and he cleans
yeah,
the counters, then he thinks I've
yeah,
cleaned the kitchen. And you think, but
yeah,
the floor is still dirty and the
yeah,
furniture is still dirty. What the hell did you do? Right? So,
yeah,
and then he thinks you're not appreciating what I did because yeah, you
yeah,
asked me to clean and I cleaned. And that's how then disconnects or frustration or even fights start happening. So I love what you're saying, because it is true, right? When someone asks you, could you clean the kitchen? Well, what does that mean for you? What are you exactly asking me to do? What is cleaning the kitchen? Is that just a rag over the counter, or is that a deep cleaning of the cabinets with everything?
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So even, even from a business perspective, I might say to my VA, could you set up a content strategy for this month for this theme? You'd think that's fairly specific.
Hmm.
What do I describe content, and what does she describe content? She might write me like 3 emails and say, there you go. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, no, but I want reels, and I want posts, and I want carousels, and I want emails, and I want you to set up the funnel for it. That might be my version.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, once they say yes, that contract stays in place until it's
Mhm.
completed. And if
Yeah.
you're not clear with what it is, it never completes.
Yeah.
So imagine having all of these contracts pulling at your energy, and people wonder why
Why
they
does it
have
drain?
energy leaks.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that happen with my VA. I asked her to create a nurturing sequence
Hmm.
and then when she was done, she handed it over to me. And I said, but this is a welcome sequence. When someone
Yeah,
downloads something and that welcomes them in with 5 emails, I meant a nurturing one for an entire year.
yeah,
That just,
yes,
and so
yeah,
it's indeed, people have different ideas or different definitions. And what I'm seeing is that communication is the culprit in well, I think
yes. Yeah.
95% at least of the time when things are not really running smoothly.
I reckon I would go so far as 100%.
Yeah, I was being cautious, but it
You're
could
being,
be.
cautious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost every single instance has to do with communication, and it doesn't matter in what context, right? It can be in a business context, but also in a relationship context, and then not necessarily a romantic, but also a child
Friendship
or a parent
or a
or a
child.
friend
Yeah,
or.
yeah. In every single thing. A lot of within this book, a lot of it, I would say 80% is around communication and interaction.
Mhm.
Not just with others, but with yourself.
Yes.
How because you communicate inside as well. So if you're being unclear outside, likelihood is in there, you're not clear with yourself either.
Hmm. Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, that's totally true. So people who come to me are often very disappointed in other people, and they feel
Mm.
hurt by other
Yeah.
people or betrayed by other people, and this caused trauma. And I've had that also when I was younger, when I was less personally developed than I am right now. I also experienced things like that, and for me, it was because subconsciously I
Mm.
expected, if I'm being nice to you and if I am there for you when you need me, then you will be nice to me and you will also be there for me when I need you. And it
Yes.
wasn't something I consciously thought, but it is an unconscious, a subconscious expectation. And then
Mm.
when you are always giving, 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 and people are happy with that, and you need something, then people usually were not there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that would be incredibly hurtful, because I thought I did this for you and that for you and that and that and that and that and that. And now I'm asking you this simple thing and you cannot even respond, or you cannot even do that for me. And then you feel hurt and disappointed by their reactions and this
Yeah.
unconscious pattern that is below.
Mm. Mm. And I think for me, over the years, because several people in my past have mentioned that I've got like a really strong moral compass that sometimes can be
I
like,
have that too. That doesn't help.
yeah, doesn't help me very much sometimes. And I realized that I had to understand that everyone was different.
Yes.
Everyone's values are different.
Yes.
And I didn't necessarily know how someone was being driven or, led inside, but I couldn't expect them to follow me, as in how I am.
Exactly. So you need to sort of let go of your expectations,
Mm,
and
yeah,
that doesn't mean that you cannot talk about it. So
yeah.
I lost someone who's really, really important right before Christmas, and it was a
Oh,
devastating blow, and it still is. And in the week around Christmas and New Year's, nobody reached out to me, even though I had friends that knew how the extent of my hurt and what was happening. And well, that didn't really feel great, right? Because I thought
no.
you don't even have to talk to me. Even you could just send me a heart emoji or something so that I know
Yes,
I'm not completely alone in this period where everybody celebrates with each other. And
yes,
I went to my friend and I said to her, I shared with you the extent of my hurt and my pain and my grief, and you are one of the few people who know exactly how devastated and hurt I am, and I didn't hear from you in those 2 weeks. How come? And
mm,
she said, well, you're right. I cannot deal with death. I don't know
mm,
how to deal with it. I don't know how to respond to it. I don't know how to act. I don't know what to do. And then I freeze and I do
mm,
nothing.
mm.
But I understand that that was not great for you. And I thought how wonderful it is that I was able to talk to her about it without being accusatory or coming
Yes,
from a place of hurt, and that she could
yeah,
respond to it with an honest insight
mm,
into herself, and that we then have a deeper understanding of each other,
that's lovely.
right?
That would have been for you also liberating,
Yes.
and for her, actually, she might then choose to work on that.
That's what she said. I am aware that I need to work on this. And I think,
Mm,
oh, okay, yeah.
yeah,
And then you
yeah,
don't have to feel hurt or abandoned anymore because it's not something that someone did intentionally. And because you were able to come from, well, a neutral place in talking about it and communicating about it, you could talk about it in a constructive way. And that is what I see that often does not happen. My old self would have been, and I talked to you about it and you didn't do anything, and how could you, or something similar. I'm maybe exaggerating a bit, but you come from hurt. And the emotions
yes,
that are attached to it, disappointment, frustration, maybe anger,
mm,
and that usually is not received well.
yes,
When the roles
yes,
are reversed, you would also not receive that really well. So it's
mm,
it's wonderful when you've reached a level within yourself that you're able to come from a neutral place, and it's even more wonderful when it can be received in a neutral place that
yeah,
allows true communication.
definitely, definitely. And it becomes a dance. It can be very, very beautiful. And it helps both parties to grow.
Yes, yes.
So
And that's
yeah,
why I think the work that you and I are doing is so incredibly important, because the majority of people are not authentic in the sense that they are not living their design. Most of them are not even aware of their design, let
no,
alone living
no,
it.
yeah. And also just being aware that there may be things, because you're not going to fix everything. There isn't a
No.
fix. You're not broken. But
Mm.
understanding where, when we look at the design, for example, I've actually got mine next to me. I print it out. I have it next to me. I've got actually my human design and my gene keys because I work with both too.
Yeah, right.
And looking at it and understanding that, okay, yeah, I'm not living authentically in that particular area.
Hmm.
And is that okay? Of course it's okay. I'm a human.
Hmm.
But the thing is, being aware already starts the process. And then you
Yes,
don't have too much.
being aware and having the intention to do the best you can in any given moment. I think
Yes,
that's what it's about, because we are all human. And even when you've already done a lot of work on yourself, it doesn't mean that you cannot slide back into a hurt or a shadow,
yeah,
especially
yeah.
when major things happen.
Well, I also find that when people have done actually a lot of work, that at that point, does pride take over and does ego take over? And
Hmm.
that actually can push you right back in
Hmm.
because you're not living from a place of um, what's the word? Mastery, I suppose. Mastery is not having it all done. Mastery is the process of knowing that you don't have it all done.
Yes, like you're human.
Exactly. That to me is what mastery is.
Yeah.
And my I have a lot of martial arts background and spiritual martial arts type background,
Yeah.
qigong
Hmm. Yeah.
and kung fu
Touchy.
and all these things.
Mm.
Yeah. So there's a lot of spiritual basis on that from the perspective of the master, the people who have, done all this stuff. They don't think they know it all.
No.
They're constantly learning. They're doing basics all the time. I mean, I used to catch my sensei doing the white belt kata.
Ah,
And
yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, what's he doing white belt stuff? He's like
You're a black
eight, nine,
belt
10
five times
degree
over.
black belt, yeah, exactly. You're way over here. And I'm a very questioning person. I was a nightmare at school. It's like, why, why,
I
why?
was the Y girl also.
Yeah. What's going on? What? Tell me. And I want to know. And
Yeah.
he said to me, unless you keep working on the foundations, everything that you've built on top of it can fall
Well, yeah.
because foundations can erode. And also I'm trying to think of what's the word? What's the word when
Humble, I think, also.
humble, that's the word. Humility and humble. Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
yeah. And that's what um I believe true mastery is.
Yes, I think so too. Oh, I've been
So
really loving our talk, Shirley. I think we hit upon some really great things. So, if you are listening to this or watching this, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear if you had some insights. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe you want to share your story along the lines of how we shared our story. It would be really great to read about it in the comments below this video. I could also imagine that you think, oh, I want to meet Shirley because she really resonated with me. And where can they find you?
well, I'm mainly on Facebook. I do have my website, shirleyjoffe.com. And if you do purchase the book, it will take you into a whole environment called Fierce Empathy, where there are trainings and courses. All of that is available with the book because the book is just the reading. But when you actually put it into practice, that's of course what's going to, move the needle
When
for you.
mastery comes.
That's where mastery comes. So because of that, I've done a lot of video trainings and different things to practice the techniques and deepen the techniques within the book. Because there's only so much I could put in this one book without it being,
Yeah,
Encyclopedia Britannica.
yeah, like the encyclopedia,
Yeah,
12 editions. Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
I get it.
So yes, yeah. So you'll be able to find the book on Amazon or on my website. You can go to my website and if you purchase from the website, it's probably easier because it'll take you straight to the course hub.
I will make
So
sure that the links that you mentioned are included in the show notes. So no worries if this went too fast or if you have no idea how to spell Joffe, then the links will be in the description below this video probably, or maybe to the side. It kind of depends on where you're catching this. And yeah, if you thought that this was a really valuable talk, I would also love it if you would subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Maybe hit the notification bell so you will never miss other videos like this again. And maybe you would consider sharing it with the people that you know, because you never know who needed to hear this message, and you would be doing them and us a really great service by sharing it. Thank you so much, Shirley, for being here, for your wisdom, for everything that you're doing for humankind. I think it's incredibly important, and I feel very grateful and blessed that we met and that we were able to have this discussion today.
Me too, so much. Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you.
Everybody else, I wish you an amazing rest of your day, and I look forward to inspiring you again with another beautiful guest in next week's episode. For today, I wish you an amazing rest of your day and talk soon.